The morning of my 45th birthday should have been the crowning achievement of a life built in shadows. The sprawling Hamptons estate gleamed under a flawless August sky, every blade of grass manicured to perfection, every white-draped table set with crystal and silver that caught the sunlight like scattered diamonds. 300 guests had gathered, the most powerful players in the Eastern underworld, senators and judges who owed their careers to my influence, and the loyal soldiers who had bled for my empire. They had come to pay tribute to the ghost, the name whispered in Fia, from the docks of Red Hook to the penthouses of Midtown. I had earned that name through 2 decades of absolute dominion, through blood and sacrifice and an unyielding refusal to lose. The Parudi was a masterpiece of controlled chaos. Servants moved through the crowd with trays of champagne, their movements precise and silent. String quartet music drifted from the terrace, where the elite mingled, their laughter masking the dark currents that ran beneath every handshake and smile. I stood at the center of it all, accepting congratulations from men who would sooner cut their own throats than openly defy me, and from women who draped themselves over my hoping to catch a glimmer of the power I wielded. My fiancée, Serena, glided through the crowd like a queen among peasants. Her diamond-studded gown cost more than most people's homes, and she wore it with the practiced arrogance of someone who had never known a moment of doubt. Her father, Senator H.A. Risen Cole, worked the room with the skill of a seasoned politician, securing favors disguised as casual conversation. They were the perfect accessories to my empire. Beautiful, influential, utterly devoted to the image of power I had cultivated, but I had learned long ago that trust was a currency best spent sparingly. My father had taught me that lesson on the night he was gunned down in a Little Italy restaurant, bleeding out on the floor while I watched from the shadows, too young and too powerless to save him. I had spent the intervening years building walls so high that no one could breach them, surrounding myself with men whose loyalty I had purchased with blood and coin. My head of security, Marco, approached with his characteristic stoic grace. He had saved my life 3 times in the 15 years he had served me, each incident cementing his place in my inner circle. Boss, everything secure. Perimeter sweep came back clean. No threats detected. Good. Keep the men sharp. I clapped him on the shoulder, a gesture of familiarity I extended to few. I want eyes on every entrance. Always, boss. He melted back into the crowd, ring into the shadows where he belonged. The Parudi continued its elegant dance. I was about to make my way to the terrace's edge for a moment of solitude, a luxury in a life defined by constant vigilance, when I felt a small hand tug at my trousers. I looked down, riled by the audacity. Standing there was Lily, the daughter of my housekeeper, Maria. The girl was 3 years old, with enormous brown eyes that held a wisdom far beyond her years. Her mother had been with me for 5 years, a quiet immigrant from Guatemala who kept my home in immaculate order and never asked for anything beyond her modest salary. I had noticed the child before, a shadow in the corners of my vast estate. Mr. Don Lily's voice was above a whisper, trembling with an urgency that made my spine stiffen. I crouched down, something did for anyone. What is it, little one? She glanced around nervously, her small face pinched with an anxiety that seemed grotesque on such a young face. The bad men coming. They want to hurt you. My blood went cold. Every instinct that had kept me alive for 2 decades screamed that this child was speaking truth. What bad men, Lily? The ones in the basement. They have the boom booms. Boom booms. Children's slang for guns or explosives. But that wasn't what chilled me. It was the fact that she said basement. The basement was off limits to all guests, accessible only through a secured door that required biometric clearance. The kind of clearance that only my most trusted inner circle possess. Who told you about the bad men? Sweet. She shook her head, her eyes filling with TRS that she fought to contain. They were loud. I heard them when I was hiding in the laundry room. They said they're going to make the big boom when the clock says 12. I glanced at my watch. It was 11:47, 13 minutes until midnight. 13 minutes until everyone in this room, including this brave little girl and her unsuspecting mother, could be incinerated in a fireball that would level my estate and everything I had built. I forced a smile onto my face, the kind of practiced expression that had fooled countless enemies. Lily, I need you to be very brave. Can you do that for me? She nodded solemnly, her small body trembling. Go find your mother. Tell her to take you to the wine cellar, the small one behind the kitchen. Wait there with her until I come get you. Can you remember that? Wine cellar, behind kitchen. Wait for Mr. Don. She repeated the words like a sacred oath. That's my girl. I pressed a kiss to her forehead, an instinctive gesture that surprised even me. Now go. Quickly and quietly. She scampered away, Desape ring into the sea of expensive suits and gowns, a tiny lifeboat navigating treacherous waters. I straightened my jacket and began moving Tawa RD the house, my mind already racing through possibilities, calculating angles, preparing for the confrontation that awaited. Someone had compromised my security. Someone with access to the basement. Someone who knew the layout of my home intimately enough to understand that the basement's reinforced concrete would contain the blast of enough explosives to level this entire property. The planning had been meticulous, the execution precise. Whoever it was had played a long game, waiting for the perfect moment. The one night when all my enemies were gathered in one place, when my Gua RD would be lowered by celebration and excess. I passed through the French doors into the main ballroom, and Serena intercepted me with a practiced smile. D.A. Rilling, the senator wants to make a toast. Where are you going? Tell him to wait. Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose in disbelief. Dawn, it's your birthday. You can't just Desape. I can do whatever I want. The steel in my voice made her step back, her composure cracking for just a moment. Keep everyone in the ballroom. Do not let anyone NEA the basement. Before she could protest, I was gone, moving through the service corridors with the silence of a predator. I passed a terrified-looking waiter who NEA dropped his tray of champagne flutes. Go to the kitchen and stay there, I ordered, my voice brooking no argument. Now. He fled without question, leaving me alone in the dimly lit corridor. The basement door was slightly IR. That was wrong. It should have been sealed with a magnetic lock that required my thumbprint and a 6-digit code. Someone had disabled it. Bypassed the security that was supposed to be impenetrable. I drew the pistol from my shoulder holster, the familiar weight of comfort in my palm, and slipped through the doorway. I descended the concrete stairs with practiced silence, each step measured to avoid the slightest sound that might alert the conspirators to my presence. The basement was a maze of storage rooms, wine racks, and the reinforced panic room that had been installed 5 years ago after a rival family made an attempt on my life. Voices echoed from somewhere in the depths, angry, tense voices arguing in rapid Italian that ca ride clia rly through the concrete walls. I recognized the first voice immediately. Vito Costello, capo of one of the Brooklyn crews. He had been with me since the beginning, had stood beside me in the blood-soaked coup that had cemented my power over the 5 families. I had trusted him with my life, had considered him a brother in all but blood. Ayudo, we're cutting it too close, Vito was saying, his voice strained with anxiety. The detonators need to be synced. If we miss the window, we lose everything. Patience, my friend. The second voice made my blood run colder than any winter wind. It was smooth, cultured, and utterly familiar. The ghost will be in the center of the ballroom at midnight for the toast. That's when we strike. We don't just kill him. We annihilate everything he built. Every legacy, every memory, every soul in that house. I stepped out of the shadows, my gun raised and steady. That's quite a speech, Marco. My head of security whirled around, his handsome face contorting with shock that quickly shifted into naked fear. Standing beside him was not just Vito, but 3 other men I had trusted with my life. My inner circle, my brothers in ARMS. All of them traitors, their faces illuminated by the dim glow of the explosives they had been wiring. Dawn, I can explain. Save it. I leveled my gun at his chest, my aim unwavering. I want to know, who put you up to this? Who offered you a better deal than the one you already had? Because I know you didn't do this for love, Marco.
You're not that stupid.
You're a survivor, and survivors don't burn their bridges without a guarantee on the other side. Marco's eyes flickered with something. Fear, regret, or maybe both. It wasn't personal, boss. Business is business. Business is business, I repeated slowly, tasting the bitter irony. That's what you say when you're about to kill the man who pulled you out of the gutter, who gave you a home, who treated you like a son. I gave you everything, Marco. Everything. You treated me like an employee, he spat, his composure cracking under the weight of his betrayal. A servant. While you played king, I did all the dirty work. The deaths, the intimidation, the blood you were too clean to touch. And for what? A salary, the occasional bonus. I want what you have. I want it all. There's the truth. I gestured with my gun, the motion casual but deliberate. Greed. Simple, ugly greed. I can respect that more than your kawaii, RDLY justifications. But this, I kicked over a case of explosives, my foot connecting with the metal with a dull clang. This is amateur hour. You think killing me and a few hundred guests will give you my empire, the 5 families would TRUAPA, RT before you could count your first dollar. We have support, Vito said, stepping forward RD with a bravado he didn't feel. Powerful support. People who are retired of your iron fist, who want to see the ghost exorcised from this city for good. Name them. Enough talk. Marco raised his own weapon, his hand trembling despite his resolve. You're outnumbered. The explosives will go off whether we press the button or not. The timer's already set. You can't stop it. Watch me. The bullet hit Marco Sqa in the shoulder before he could fire. My shot was faster, more precise, the product of 15 years of training for moments exactly like this. Marco screamed and fell, his gun clattering across the concrete floor as he clutched his wound, blood seeping through his fingers. The others drew their weapons, but they were hesitant. They'd seen what I could do, had witnessed my ruthlessness firsthand in countless battles. I was a ghost, an impossibility, the man who always seemed to know when danger was coming. Put your guns down, I said calmly, my voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Do it now, and I'll consider letting you live to see your families again. Make one wrong move, and I'll ensure your families never find your bodies. I'll erase every trace of you from the EARTH, and your children will grow up wondering if you ever existed. Vito swallowed hard, his face pale with fear. You can't. I can. I will.
Test me.
They lowered their weapons one by one, the clatter of metal against concrete echoing through the basement. I had always believed in planting seeds of fear, so deep that they choked out the roots of rebellion. Today was proof of that principle. I pulled out my phone and dialed my backup security team, the ones even Marco didn't know about, the men I had cultivated in secret for precisely this kind of eventuality. We have a situation in the basement. Get down here now. And get a team to sweep the ballroom for second-A devices. I want every inch of this property clear red. Yes, Mr. Don. Within minutes, the basement was SWA rang with loyal men. Marco and his co-conspirators were in cuffs, their faces masks of defeat, and the explosives were being carefully disarmed by my most trusted technicians. I watched the timer stop at 11:59, 1 minute to midnight. The Pa Rudy upstairs would be beginning the countdown to my birthday toast, blissfully unaware of the annihilation that had been inches away. I looked at Marco, now pale and bleeding on the floor, and felt nothing but cold contempt. You made one mistake, my old friend. You underestimated the little things. The people you think are beneath your notice. He read at me, uncomprehending through his pain. I was warned, I said simply, crouching down to meet his eyes. By a child. A little girl who he your loudmouth planning in my laundry room. She's the reason you're alive, Marco. Her and her mother. The people you would have killed without a second thought. M.A. Rico's face crumpled with realization. The maid. M.A. Ria. Yes. I leaned in closer, lowering my voice to a whisper only he could hear. I'm going to make something very clear to you. The people who work for me, who keep my home running, who see for my space and my comfort, they're more loyal than you ever were. They don't betray me because I treat them with respect.
You chose to see that as weakness.
You were wrong, and now you'll pay the price. I stood up, gesturing to my men. Get him to the hospital. I want him kept alive until I can question him properly. And the others, take them to the safe house. I'll deal with them personally when I'm ready. As I walked back up the stairs, leaving the CA Renage behind me, I felt something shift in my chest. The betrayal was fresh, the wounds still bleeding, but there was something else there too. A strange RMTH that had nothing to do with revenge. A child had saved me. A little girl with enormous eyes and a brave heart had done what my most trusted soldiers could not. She had seen the danger and found the courage to in me, even though I was just the intimidating man who lived in the big house. I made a silent vow as I stepped back into the ballroom, plastering a smile on my face as the crowd cheered the arrival of midnight. I would find Lily and M.A. Ria. I would protect them with everything I had. And I would make sure they never regretted the day they saved the life of the ghost. The party continued as if nothing had happened. The string quartet played on, the champagne flowed, and the guests laughed and danced without a single clue that they had been minutes away from a fiery death. I moved through the crowd with a practiced smile, accepting congratulations and birthday wishes while my mind churned with the implications of what had just occurred. 300 powerful people, the very foundation of my empire, had been seconds from annihilation, and not one of them knew. I had made the decision to keep everything quiet, to bury the attempted assassination beneath layers of secrecy and silence. The less people knew about the conspiracy, the more time I would have to uncover its full scope, to Leah RN who else had been involved, and to ensure that the rot that had poisoned my inner circle was completely excised. My men had worked with ruthless efficiency to remove all evidence of the plot from the basement. The explosives were gone, the blood was scrubbed from the concrete, and MARCO and his co-conspirators had been spirited away to a secure location where they would await my personal attention. To anyone who hadn't been in that basement, the night had been nothing more than a lavish celebration of my life and power, but I knew the truth. I knew that my empire was built on a foundation of sand, that the people I had trusted most had been plotting to destroy me for months, perhaps years. And I knew that I had been saved by a child, a little girl who had seen the danger and found the courage to in me. I found M.A. Ria and Lily in the wine cellar behind the kitchen, exactly where I had told them to wait. Lily was asleep in her mother's lap, her small hand clutching a tattered stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. M.A. Ria looked up when I entered, her face pale with fear and confusion. Mr. Don, I don't understand what happened. Lily said we needed to hide, that you told her to bring me here, but she won't tell me why. She just keeps saying that the bad men wanted to hurt you. I crouched down in front of them, my knees cracking against the cold stone floor. Your daughter saved my life tonight, M.A. Ria. She saved everyone in this house. M.A. Ria's face went even paler, the color draining from her cheeks. What? I reached out and took her free hand, squeezing it gently. There were people in the basement. Bad people who had planted explosives with the intention of killing everyone at the party. Lily heard them talking when she was hiding in the laundry room. She came to find me, to warn me, and because of her courage, I was able to stop them before they could set off the bombs. M.A. Ria sta read at her sleeping daughter, TRS streaming down her face. I didn't know. She didn't tell me anything. She just said we had to hide, and I trusted her because she looked so SCA red, and now you're telling me that my baby. Your baby is a hero, I said firmly. She saw something wrong and she didn't ignore it. She found the strength to come to me, a man she rely knows, and tell me what she had seen. Do you understand how that is how extraordinary? M.A. Ria shook her head, her sobs muffled by her hand. She's just a child. She's only 3 years old. She doesn't understand danger. doesn't understand what could have happened to her if they had caught her. But she did understand. That's the miracle of it. I reached out and placed my hand over Lily's small back, feeling the steady rhythm of her breathing. She recognized the evil in those men's voices, even if she couldn't name it. She knew that something terrible was about to happen, and she did the only thing she could think of to stop it. She found the most powerful person she knew and told him the truth. Ria was silent for a long moment, her terrace still falling but her breathing beginning to steady. What happens now, Mr. Don? What happens to us? I met her eyes, letting her see the absolute sincerity in mine. From this moment on, you and Lily will be under my personal protection. I will set up a trust fund for her education, and when she is older, she will have a position in my organization if she wants it, no questions asked. You will never want for anything again, and anyone who tries to harm you or your daughter will answer to me personally. Ria shook her head. I don't want your money, Mr. Don. I didn't save you for money. I didn't even know what was happening until you just told me. I'm just a maid, a simple woman from Guatemala who came here to work and send money home to my family. I know you didn't do it for money, Ria. That's exactly why I'm offering you everything I have. I smiled, a re-expression I had forgotten how to use. Loyalty like yours, like Lily's, is priceless in my world. It cannot be bought, cannot be coerced. It is given freely, and when it is given, it must be honored. I intend to honor it for the rest of my life. She read at me, her eyes wide with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept my protection. Say you'll let me take care of you and Lily the way you deserve to be taken care of. I squeezed her hand again. I need to know that you're safe, Ria. I need to be able to sleep at night, knowing that I've done right by the people who saved me. She was silent for a long moment, her eyes searching mine for something I couldn't name. Finally, she nodded. Thank you, Mr. Don. I accept. For Lily's sake, I accept. Good. I stood up, my knees protesting the sudden movement. Stay here until I come back for you. The situation is being handled, but I want you safe until I know for certain that all threats have been neutralized. I'll have one of my men bring you some food and blankets. Thank you, Mr. Don. I nodded once and left the wine cellar, my mind already racing with the implications of what had happened. The conspiracy had been the root, but it was only the beginning. I needed to understand who else was involved, how deep the rot ran, and how I could ensure that nothing like this ever happened again. Back in the ballroom, Serena found me with concealed fury in her eyes. She was flanked by her father, the senator, whose smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Where have you been, Don? Serena demanded, her voice pitched low to avoid attracting attention. You read for almost an hour, and I was left to explain your absence to 300 guests. Do you have any idea how harassing that was? I was handling a situation, I said calmly, straightening my tie. What kind of situation? The kind you don't need to worry about. I walked past her tower, the stage where the band had been set up. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Don. Serena, I said we'll talk about it tomorrow. She fell silent, her jaw tight with resentment, but her father placed a hand on her arm and steered her away with a smooth apology. I watched them go, noting the way the senator's eyes flickered with something that might have been fear, or might have been calculation. Senator Risen Cole had been an ally for RS, a man whose political ambitions had aligned perfectly with my own. He had provided legal cover for my operations, used his influence to keep law enforcement at bay, and benefited handsomely from the arrangement. But now, watching him walk away with his daughter, I wondered just how deep his involvement in the conspiracy went. The senator made the midnight toast, his voice smooth and practiced as he praised my leadership and my vision. I smiled and accepted the congratulations of my guests, but my mind was elsewhere. I was thinking about Americo's betrayal, about the explosive timer that had stopped at 1 minute to midnight, and about Lily, the little girl who had saved my life without even understanding what she was doing. When the last guest had finally left and the estate had fallen silent, I retired to my study and began making notes. I wrote down everything I knew, every detail of the conspiracy, every name and connection that might lead me to the truth. The answers wouldn't come easy, but they would come. They always did. And when they did, I would be ready. In the days following the attempted assassination, I became a man possessed. Sleep became a luxury I could ill afford, a waste of precious hours that could be spent tearing through records, interrogating prisoners, and following the twisting threads of a conspiracy that seemed to grow more tangled with every revelation. I operated on caffeine and pure determination, my body running on fumes while my mind burned with a cold, focused fury that I had not felt since my father's murder decades ago. Marco was in the basement of a safe house in Queens, secured to a metal chair with restraints that bit into his wrists and ankles. His shoulder had been patched up by my personal physician, just enough to keep him alive and conscious, but the pain was a constant companion that gnawed at his resolve. I visited him every day, sitting across from him with a calm that I did not feel, asking the same questions in different ways, watching for the cracks in his fully constructed walls. He was talking now. The initial defiance had crumbled under the weight of his injuries and the knowledge that no rescue was coming. He had been abandoned by his co-conspirators, left to face my wrath alone, and his survival instinct had finally overcome his loyalty to whoever had recruited him. The confession that spilled from his lips over the course of 2 grueling days opened up a world of connections I had never imagined. It was like pulling at a loose thread and watching an entire tapestry unravel before my eyes. Senator Risen Cole had been in on it from the beginning. My future father-in-law, the man who had smiled at me across countless dinner tables and toasted my successes, had been the architect of the plot. He had provided political cover for the conspiracy, ensuring that any law enforcement investigation would be buried before it could begin. He had used his influence to recruit Marco, promising him power and influence beyond anything I could offer, painting a vision of a world where the ghost was nothing more than a memory. Serena had known. The engagement had always been part of the plan, a way to keep me close and distracted while the conspiracy took root. She had been feeding information to her father for months, reporting on my movements, my weaknesses, my vulnerable moments. Every secret I had read with her in the intimacy of our private moments had been passed along to the men who wanted to destroy me. Every moment of vulnerability I had shown her had been catalogued and weaponized. And then there were the others. The heads of the 5 families, always jealous of my success, always scheming to reclaim the power I had stripped from them. They had seen the assassination plot as their opportunity, a chance to finally destroy the ghost and restore the old order. They had provided funding, resources, and soldiers, all fully hidden behind layers of intermediaries and false fronts. I sat in my study, surrounded by the evidence of their conspiracy, and felt something shift in my chest. For years, I had believed that I was untouchable, that my power was absolute, that the fear I had cultivated would protect me from any threat. I had been wrong. I had been arrogant, complacent, and it had cost me everything but the one thing I had always done well, the one thing that had kept me alive in the brutal world of organized crime, was learning from my mistakes. I had survived my father's murder by becoming harder, colder, more ruthless. I had survived countless assassination attempts by staying ahead of my enemies, by anticipating their moves before they made them. And I would survive this betrayal by doing what I had always done best, adapting and striking back with devastating force. The first step was securing my inner circle. I gathered the men I knew I could trust, the ones who had proven their loyalty through years of service and sacrifice. We met in my private offices, away from prying eyes and electronic surveillance. The atmosphere was tense, the weight of recent events pressing down on all of us like a physical force. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem. I laid out the evidence on the conference table: names, dates, bank records, photographs, and transcripts of Marco's confession. The conspiracy goes deeper than I had imagined. It involves not just Marco and Vito, but also Senator Risen Cole, the heads of the 5 families, and my fiancée, Serena. Gasps erupted around the table. My top lieutenant, Vincent Russo, leaned four-way RD, his face dark with contained rage. "The senator, that piece of filth, has been sitting at your table for years, eating your food, drinking your wine, taking your money. And this is how he repays you. Greed, Vincent. It's always greed. I met his eyes, letting him see the cold fury that burned beneath my calm exterior. They wanted everything I had, and they were willing to kill me to get it. But their plan failed, and now we have the opportunity to dismantle them piece by piece. "What's the play, boss?" Vincent asked, his voice steady despite his anger. "We can't just let this slide. If we don't respond, we look weak. Every enemy we have will see the hesitation and strike.
We'll respond.
But we'll do it SMART. I pulled up a whiteboard and began outlining my plan. We START with the senator. He's the linchpin, the political protection that gave MARCO and the others the confidence to move. Without him, the whole conspiracy crumbles. We expose his corruption, destroy his reputation, and leave him with nothing. "What about the fiancé?" someone else asked. "I'll handle Serena personally." My voice was cold, devoid of the emotion I had once felt for her. She played me for a fool, and I intend to make sure she understands the consequences of that choice. She will spend the rest of her life regretting the day she decided to betray me. The meeting continued well into the night, the details of our counterattack coming into focus. By the time we adjourned, I had assembled a team of loyalists who would do whatever it took to root out the traitors and destroy their allies. The plan was comprehensive, ruthless, and designed to send a message that would echo through the underworld for generations. But as I left the office, my thoughts drifted back to Lily and Maria. The two of them had been moved to one of my safe houses, a modest apartment in a quiet neighborhood, under round-the-clock protection. I had insisted on it. Despite Maria's protests that she didn't want to be a burden, I visited them that evening, arriving unannounced with a bag of takeout and a small stuffed BAR for Lily. Maria opened the door, looking surprised and a little flustered. "Mr. Don, I didn't expect you to. I wanted to check on you. See how you're settling in." I stepped inside, taking in the modest but comfortable space. "Is everything to your satisfaction?" "We're fine, Mr. Don. More than fine." She gestured to the small kitchen table, where Lily was coloring with a set of crayons. "Lily's been asking about you. She keeps saying she wants to see the nice man from the Parudi." I smiled, a genuine one this time. I'm not sure anyone's ever called me nice before. She doesn't know any better. Maria laughed, the sound light and musical. To her, "You're the man who gave her a BAR and told her she was brave." I did tell her she was brave. Because she was. I walked over to the table and crouched down beside Lily. "Hello, little one.
How are you?"
Lily looked up, her face breaking into a wide grin. "Mr. Don, look, I drew a picture." She thrust a piece of paper at me, covered in a chaotic explosion of colors and shapes. I took it from her ruefully, examining the masterpiece with exaggerated seriousness. There were stick figures and balloons, and what Ape read to be a giant sun in the corner. "This is wonderful, Lily. I'm going to hang it in my office." "You will?" Her eyes went wide with wonder. "I will. I'll put it right next to my desk, so I can see it every day." Maria Ape read in the doorway, her expression caught between amusement and affection. "You don't have to do that, Mr. Don. It's just a child's drawing." "It's not just anything. It's a reminder." I turned to face her, letting her see the truth in my eyes. A reminder that I survived because of a little girl's courage. That's something I'll never forget. And as I looked at Lily's joyful face and Maria's grateful smile, I felt a warmth spread through my chest that had nothing to do with revenge or power. It was something I had not felt in years, something I had thought was lost to me forever. It was hope. The senator's downfall came swift and brutal, exactly as I had planned. I had always believed in the power of information, understanding that knowledge was the most potent weapon in a world governed by secrets and lies. Over the years, I had accumulated files on everyone in my sphere of influence: politicians, judges, law enforcement officials, anyone whose goodwill might one day prove useful. I had never needed to use most of them, but I had kept them ready, a silent arsenal waiting for the right moment. Senator H.A. Risenkohl's file was a treasure trove of corruption, bribes, election fraud, campaign finance violations, and a string of affairs that would have destroyed his refully cultivated family man image. I had enough material to bury him 100 times over, to erase his name from the political landscape and ensure that his legacy was nothing but ash, but I did not want to bury him. I wanted to destroy him publicly, to show the entire world what happened to those who crossed the ghost. I wanted his fall to be a spectacle, a cautionary tale that would echo through the corridors of power and remind every potential enemy that I was not a man to be trifled with. The plan was simple and elegant. I leaked the most damaging evidence to a journalist I had cultivated for IRS, a woman named Jessica Shaw who had built a reputation as a crusader against political corruption. She was ambitious, thorough, and utterly fearless, exactly the kind of weapon I needed to dismantle the senator's refully constructed facade. The evidence I provided was devastating. Bank records showing the senator's secret accounts in the Cayman Islands, photographs of him meeting with known criminals, and transcripts of phone calls in which he discussed bribes and kickbacks in casual, unguay-ride language. I had gathered it all over years of reful surveillance, never knowing when it might become useful. Within days, Senator Cole was facing a rage of accusations that seemed to come from every direction at once. Jessica Shaw's articles dominated the front pages of every major newspaper, her byline becoming synonymous with the scandal that was engulfing the senator's rear. The media frenzy was immediate and merciless, his refully constructed reputation crumbling before the country's eyes. The senator called me, his voice trembling with desperation. I let him plead for a full minute before finally speaking, savoring the fear that saturated every word he uttered. "Don, I can fix this. I can make it all go away. Just give me a chance to explain, to make things right. Risen, you tried to have me killed." My voice was calm, measured, devoid of the rage that burned beneath my surface. "You conspired with my enemies, used my fiancé to spy on me, and planned to annihilate everything I built. Did you really think I would just let that slide? Did you think I would forgive and forget because you asked nicely? Don, I can make it worth your while. I have resources, connections, influence. I can make things happen that you can only dream of. You have nothing I want." I let the words hang in the air, heavy with finality. "By the time this is over, you will have nothing at all. Your reputation, your money, your legacy. Everything you have spent a lifetime building will be destroyed. You will be a cautionary tale, a punchline, a memory that people will use to scare their children." I hung up, cutting off his desperate protests. There was no satisfaction in it, only the cold, clinical certainty of a job well done. The senator was finished, and his downfall would serve as a warning to anyone else who might contemplate betraying me. The investigation into Senator Cole was still making headlines when I turned my attention to Serena. She had been staying at her father's estate, avoiding me since the night of the party. I suspected she knew the walls were closing in, that her refully laid plans were falling apart, and that her future had become a terrifying unknown. I had her brought to my offices, flanked by 2 of my law-rigid security guards. She entered with her usual haughty grace, her chin held high and her eyes filled with defiance, though I could see the fear lurking beneath her refully constructed facade. "Dawn, what is this about?" Her voice was steady, but I could hear the tremor beneath the surface. "You're scaring me." "Good." I stood up from my desk and walked around to face her, letting her see the cold fury in my eyes. "You should be red, Serena. Do you know what happens to people who betray me? What I did to your father is just a taste. He will spend the rest of his life in federal prison, his reputation destroyed, his legacy erased. And you will join him." "I don't know what you're talking about." She tried to maintain her composure, but I could see the cracks forming. "I haven't done anything wrong. Don't lie to me." I advanced on her, and she stumbled backward, hitting the wall behind her with a soft thud. "I know everything. Marco has been singing like a canary, and I have evidence of your involvement. The secret meetings with Vito, the coded messages to your father, the information you passed along about my security protocols and my private schedule. You were the perfect spy, Serena, beautiful and ruthless and utterly without conscience. She finally broke, her CA refully constructed facade crumbling into terrace. He made me do it, she sobbed, sliding down the wall until she was crumpled on the floor. My father, he threatened to cut me off, to disinherit me, to expose things I had done that I couldn't be or to have known. I didn't have a choice. There is always a choice. I crouched down in front of her, meeting her eyes with cold contempt. You chose money and power over loyalty. You chose to help destroy the man who loved you, who trusted you, who would have given you anything you asked for. You never loved me, she screamed, her grief and anger spilling out in a torrent. I was just another asset, another piece on your chessboard. You never saw me as anything more than a convenient wife, a pretty face to adorn your ARM at social functions. You never asked me what I wanted, what I needed. You just assumed that I would be content with whatever scraps you threw my way. I let her words hang in the air, knowing there was truth in them. I had been so focused on power, on building and maintaining my empire, that I had stopped seeing the people around me as anything more than tools to be used. I had treated Serena as a possession, a status symbol, and I had never once considered that she might have ambitions of her own. But that did not excuse her actions. It did not erase the fact that she had knowingly participated in a plot to kill me, that she had smiled in my face while planning my destruction. Betrayal was betrayal, and I would not let her actions go unpunished. You will spend the rest of your life in a federal prison, I said finally, my voice cold and final. I have enough evidence to guarantee that. You will never see your father again. You will never have your precious money. You will have nothing but the cold concrete walls of a cell and the knowledge that you threw away everything for nothing. Serena fell four-way RD, her body racked with sobs. I watched her for a moment, feeling nothing but a cold, distant satisfaction. Then I gestured to my guardians. Get her out of my sight. I never want to see her again. As they drag her away, I turned back to my desk and began making notes. There was still work to be done. The 5 families were next, the true architects of the plot, the men who had orchestrated everything from the shadows. I would destroy them all, piece by piece, until nothing remained of their ancient power. But as I worked, I thought of Lily and Maria. I thought of the little girl who had saved my life, and the quiet woman who had shown me what real loyalty looked like. They were the only bright spots in the darkness of my world, the only proof that not everything in my life was built on blood and betrayal. And I made a silent vow that I would do whatever it took to keep them safe. They had saved me once. Now it was my turn to save them. With the senator's political corpse still sprawling and Serena on her way to a federal prison that would swallow the rest of her life, I turned my attention to the true architects of the conspiracy. The 5 families had been the masters pulling the strings, the ancient powers who had watched my rise with growing unease and finally decided to strike. They had operated from the shadows for generations, their power woven into the very fabric of organized crime across the country, and they had seen me as an upstay RT, a danger to their CA refully preserved traditions. They had made a fatal miscalculation. They had underestimated my reach, my resources, and most importantly, my willingness to do whatever it took to win. I had spent my entire life learning how to survive, how to adapt, how to crush my enemies before they could crush me. The 5 families had been my rivals for years, but they had never truly understood the depth of my determination. The next few weeks were a blur of relentless activity. My investigation uncovered layer after layer of the conspiracy, each revelation more damning than the last. The 5 families had been planning this for years, planting informants in my organization, cultivating relationships with my inner circle, and waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. They had invested enormous resources in their plot, and their confidence had made them CA realists. But they had also made mistakes. Small oversights and loose ends that I had been able to exploit. A CA realist phone call here, a coded message there. I had tracked the threads back to their source, following the money and the connections until I had a complete picture of their conspiracy. And now I had the ammunition I needed to strike back with devastating force. The first family to fall was the Morettis. They had been the architects of the plot, the ones who had brought the other families together and coordinated the assassination attempt. Their leader, Vincent Moretti was a cunning old man who had thought himself invincible, protected by decades of accumulated power and influence. He had been the driving force behind the conspiracy, the man who had convinced the others to join him in his reckless gamble. I waited until he was at his most vulnerable. A family wedding at his Long Island estate, a celebration that brought together all of his relatives, all of his allies, all of the people who mattered most to him. The irony of the timing was not lost on me. He had tried to kill me on my birthday. I would destroy him at his daughter's wedding, and my men moved in as the ceremony began. We swept through the estate with surgical precision, neutralizing security guards before they could raise the Allah Aram. The guests did not know what was happening until the first shots rang out, and by then it was far too late. I found Vincent in the main ballroom, surrounded by his cowering family. The music had stopped, the laughter had died, and the only sound was the terrified whimpering of women and the angry murmurs of men who knew they were outmatched. Vincent was pale, his hands trembling. The first time I had ever seen the old man show fear. Don, what is the meaning of this? His voice cracked with desperation. This is a wedding, a sacred occasion. My daughter is getting married. Have you no decency? So was my birthday party, Vincent. My voice was cold, calm, devoid of the rage that burned beneath my surface. You did not seem to see a about sacred occasions when you were plotting to kill me and everyone in my house. You did not see a about decency when you recruited my own men to betray me. He sputtered, trying to form words that would save him. I don't know what you're talking about. I had nothing to do with any plot. I am an old man, a businessman, a family man. Save it. I raised my gun, aiming it at his chest with steady precision. I have been patient, Vincent. I have let you think you were safe, let you believe that your conspiracy had gone undetected. But you were never safe. You were never hidden. I have known everything for weeks, and I have been waiting for this moment. The bullet caught him, in the chest. He crumpled to the floor, dead before he hit the ground, his blood pooling on the expensive marble tiles. I looked down at him for a moment, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. One down, vertigoed, I turned to the gathered guests, my face expressionless, my voice crying the weight of absolute authority. Let this be a lesson to anyone else who might consider challenging my authority. Vincent Moretti is dead because he tried to destroy me. His family will be allowed to live, but they will have nothing. Every asset, every property, every dollar of the Moretti fortune will be forfeited to me. They will be penniless, powerless, and completely at my mercy. The remaining families fell one by one in the weeks that followed. The Rossis, the Comte, the Gallos, all met their ends in a blaze of violence that made headlines across the country. I was relentless, unstoppable, and absolutely merciless. No one was spared. No one was given a chance to negotiate or surrender. I had given them the opportunity to walk away, to accept my dominance and live in peace, and they had chosen instead to try to destroy me. Now, they would face the consequences. By the time it was over, the 5 families were no more. I had absorbed their territories, their businesses, their soldiers, and their accumulated wealth. I had become the single most powerful man in the underworld, read and respected in equal measure by everyone who knew my name. The old order had been swept away, and I was the undisputed ruler of the new world that had risen from its ashes. But the victory was hollow. I had lost friends, allies, people I had trusted with my life. Americo's face haunted my dreams, the pain of his betrayal still fresh despite everything I had done to avenge it. I had destroyed the men who had conspired against me, but I could not undo the damage they had done to my trust, my faith, my ability to believe in the people around me, and in the quiet moments, in the darkness of my study when the weight of my empire pressed down on me, I found myself thinking about Lily and Maria, the 2 people who had saved my life, who had reminded me of what loyalty really meant. They were the only bright spots in the darkness of my world, the only proof that not everything was built on blood and betrayal. I visited them often, bringing gifts and spending time with Lily as she grew from a tiny toddler into a curious and precocious child. Ria was always there, her quiet strength and steady presence a comfort that I did not know I needed. She asked for nothing, expected nothing, and gave everything without reservation, and slowly, tentatively, I began to realize that I had found something I had never expected. Something that had nothing to do with power or empire or revenge. Something that felt like home. The months that followed the fall of the 5 families brought an unexpected transformation. My empire had never been stronger, my power never more absolute, and yet I found myself spending less and less time in the world I had built. The boa or drums and back rooms that had once consumed my every waking hour began to feel suffocating, the endless machinations and power struggles hollow and meaningless. I had become more careful in who I trusted, more cautious in my dealings with the men who surrounded me. The betrayal had left scars that would never fully heal, a permanent wariness that colored every interaction, every decision. But I had also become more wary of the people who truly mattered, the ones who had stood by me when everything was falling apart. Ria had returned to work in my household, despite my initial objections. She had insisted, telling me that she needed purpose, needed to feel useful, needed to return to the life she had known before everything changed. I had relented, understanding that I could not protect her by keeping her locked away from the world, and so she was back in my home, overseeing the day-to-day operations with the same quiet efficiency that had first drawn my attention years ago. She moved through the halls with an ease that had not been there before, comfortable in the spaces that had once intimidated her. Lily was there too, running through the corridors with the boundless energy of childhood, her laughter echoing through rooms that had known only silence and shadows. The household had changed around them. The staff, who had once been distant and formal, had warmed to Ria's gentle presence. They treated her with a respect that had nothing to do with my favor and everything to do with who she was. She had renewed their loyalty through kindness, through patience, through the simple act of being herself. I found myself spending more and more time with them, drawn by something I could not fully name. It was not just gratitude, though that was certainly part of it. It was something deeper, something that had been growing in the quiet spaces of my heart since the night Lily had saved my life. Ria became a confidant, the one person I could talk to without the walls I had built around myself. I told her about my childhood, about my father's murder, about the years of struggle and violence that had shaped me into the man I was. She listened without judgment, her eyes warm with compassion, her silence a comfort that I had never known I needed, and slowly, tentatively, I began to share the things I had never told anyone. The doubts, the fears, the moments of weakness that I had buried so deep that I had almost forgotten they existed. She accepted all of it, every dark corner of my soul, without flinching. Lily was a constant presence in my life, a bright spot that had become essential to my existence. She was 7 now, a curious and clever child who asked questions that cut straight to the heart of things. She had no fear of me, no awe of my power. She treated me like a normal person, and that might have been the greatest gift she had ever given me. I was sitting in my study one evening, going through paperwork, when Lily read in the doorway. She was wearing a dress that was too big for her, one of Ria's old things that she had wrapped around herself like a princess's gown. Her hair was in 2 neat braids, and her face was thoughtful in a way that was both amusing and disarming. "Mr. Don, can I ask you something?" I set down my pen, giving her my full attention. This had become a ritual between us, these moments of unexpected conversation. "Of course, little one. Anything." She climbed into the chair across from me, her legs dangling over the edge. "Why don't you have any children of your own?" The question hit me harder than I had expected. I had never thought about it much, had always assumed that my life was too dangerous, too uncertain for a family. But now, looking at Lily, I realized how much I had missed, how much I had sacrificed. "I never found the right person," I said finally, the truth coming out more easily than I had expected. "Someone who could handle the complications of my life. Someone who could love me despite everything I have done." Like my mama, I laughed, a real laugh that surprised me. "Your mother is a very special woman, Lily." She is strong and brave, and she loves you more than anything in the world. I know. Lily swung her legs, her expression serious. Do you love her, Lily? That's not something I can. I paused, collecting myself. That's not something I can talk about easily. It's complicated. Adults always say that when they don't want to answer. She crossed her arms, a look of pure stubbornness on her face. But I think you do love her. I think you just don't know how to say it. I read at her, completely disarmed by her insight. How did you get so wise? I pay attention. She shrugged, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Mama says that's my superpower. I see things that other people miss. And just like that, the wall I had refully constructed around my heart cracked open. I had let myself be vulnerable with this child in a way I had never been vulnerable with anyone else. She saw through my defenses, through the refully constructed facade of power and control, and found something real underneath. I did love Maria. I had loved her for months, perhaps longer, without ever admitting it to myself. She was everything I had never known I needed, a steady anchor in the chaos of my life. A reminder that there was still goodness in the world, but I was afraid. I had never been good at love, at trusting, at opening myself up to another person. Every relationship in my life had ended in betrayal or disappointment, and I had built walls to protect myself from that pain. To let Maria in would mean tearing those walls down, and I was not sure I had the courage to do that. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, I found myself walking through the empty halls of my estate. I passed the kitchen, where Maria was cleaning up after dinner, and I stopped in the doorway, watching her work. She turned, sensing my presence, and smiled. "Mr. Don, is everything all right?" "Everything is fine," I said, stepping into the room. "I was just thinking." "About what?" "About you." The words came out before I could stop them. "About how much you mean to me. About how much I have come to rely on you, to need you, in ways I never expected." Maria set down the towel she was holding, her eyes sea-urching mine. "What are you saying, Mr. Don?" "I am saying that I love you." I crossed the room to stand in front of her, my heart pounding in my chest. "I have loved you for months, perhaps longer, and I was too afraid to admit it. You are everything I never knew I needed, and I cannot imagine my life without you." Maria was silent for a long moment, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. When she finally spoke, her voice was rely above a whisper. "I love you too, Mr. Don. I have loved you since the night you came to find us in the wine cellar, since you promised to protect us and keep us safe. I was just too afraid to say it. Then say it now." I reached out and took her hands, holding them in mine. "Say it and mean it, because I need to hear it." "I love you," she said, her voice stronger now. "I love you, Don." I pulled her into my arms, holding her close, feeling the warmth of her body against mine. It was a moment of pure grace, a gift I had never expected and did not deserve. But I accepted it anyway, grateful beyond measure for the woman who had saved me, body and soul. The weeks that followed our confession were a revelation. The walls I had spent a lifetime building crumbled away in the warmth of Maria's love, and I found myself opening up in ways I had never imagined possible. I had been so consumed by power, by the endless cycle of violence and retribution, that I had forgotten what it felt like to simply be a man, to love and be loved without conditions or calculations. Maria was patient with me, understanding of my fears and hesitations. She had seen the darkness in me, had witnessed the ruthlessness with which I had destroyed my enemies, and she had accepted all of it. She did not try to change me, did not ask me to be someone I was not. She simply loved me, and that love was more powerful than any weapon I had ever wielded. We kept our relationship quiet at first, both of us wary of the complications that could arise from a public declaration. I was still the ghost, the most fear-red man in the underworld, and any sign of vulnerability could be exploited by my enemies. But the secret was a burden, a weight that grew heavier with each passing day. Lily, predictably, was the first to figure it out. She had always been observant, had always noticed the small things that others missed. She caught us holding hands in the GA den one evening, and her face broke into a triumphant grin. I knew it. She ran Tawa RDS, her small arms outstretched. I knew you loved each other. I told you, Mr. Don, I told you that you just didn't know how to say it. I laughed, lifting her into my arms and spinning her around. You were right, little one. You were right about everything. So, does this mean you're going to be my new daddy? She looked at me with those enormous eyes, and I felt my heart crack open and I glanced at Maria, who was blushing furiously but smiling through her embarrassment. That's up to your mother, Lily. I don't get to decide things like that on my own. Lily turned to Maria, her expression pleading. Mama, can Mr. Don be my daddy? Maria reached out and took my hand, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I think that would be wonderful, sweet Art. But it's not something we can decide right now. These things take time. I have time, Lily read, her voice filled with the certainty of childhood. I can wait. And just like that, we had become a family. Not by blood, but by something far more powerful.
By choice.
By love. The months that followed were the happiest of my life. I still ran my empire, still dealt with the endless stream of challenges and threats that came with absolute power. But I had something to come home to, something to fight for beyond the accumulation of wealth and influence. Maria and I were married in a quiet ceremony at the estate, attended only by our closest friends and allies. It was not the grand affair I had once imagined, but it was perfect in its simplicity. Lily was the flower girl, scattering petals with wild abandon, and her joy was infectious, filling the room with a warmth that had been absent for far too long. I watched Maria walk down the aisle, her white dress simple and elegant, her face radiant with happiness. I thought about everything that had brought us here, the betrayal and the redemption, the darkness and the light. I thought about the little girl who had saved my life, and the quiet woman who had saved my soul. When the ceremony was over, when we had exchanged our vows and sealed our commitment with a kiss, I pulled them both into my arms. Maria and Lily, my family, my reason for being. I promise you both, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. I promise to protect you, to cherish you, to give you everything I have. You are my world now, and nothing will ever come between us. Maria leaned into me, her head resting on my shoulder. I know, Dawn. I know. Lily tugged at my sleeve, demanding attention. Does this mean we get to live in the big house forever? I laughed, ruffling her hair. Forever and ever, little one. As long as you want. But the peace could not last. I had made too many enemies, destroyed too many lives, to ever truly escape the violence that defined my world. The remnants of the 5 families had been scattered, but they had not been destroyed. They were out there, nursing their grievances and planning their revenge. I should have been more vigilant. I should have known that the calm was only the eye of the storm, that the darkness would eventually return. But I had been blinded by love, lulled into a false sense of security by the warmth of my family's embrace. The attack came on a quiet afternoon, when I was least expecting it. I was in the GA den with Lily, teaching her how to plant flowers, when the first shots rang out. They were distant at first, barely audible over the sound of the birds, but they grew closer with terrifying speed. I grabbed Lily and Dove for cover, shielding her with my body as bullets tore through the air around us. My security team responded instantly, returning fire and pushing the attackers back. The gunfire was deafening, punctuated by screams and the shattering of glass. Lily was crying, her small body trembling against mine. I held her tight, whispering reassurances that I did not fully believe. It's okay, little one.
I've got you.
I'm not going to let anything happen to you. The attack lasted only minutes, but it felt like an eternity. When the shooting finally stopped, when the silence descended like a shroud, I rose to my feet and surveyed the damage. The GA den was destroyed, the flowers I had been planting trampled into the mud. The estate was in chaos, my men scrambling to secure the perimeter and tend to the wounded. The attackers had been driven off, but they had made their point. They had sent a message. clear and unmistakable.
I was not safe.
No one was safe. The remnants of the 5 families were still out there, and they would not rest until they had destroyed everything I love. I see a ride Lily to M.A. Ria, who was waiting in the safe room with a terror-stricken face. I handed her daughter to her, and I saw the fear in her eyes, the same fear that had been there on the night of the Parudi. Dawn, what happened? What's going on? Someone wants to hurt us. I took her face in my hands, forcing her to look at me. But they won't succeed. I promise you that, M.A. Ria. I will find them, and I will destroy them, whatever it takes. She nodded, her eyes still filled with fear. I believe you, Dawn. I believe you. I kissed her forehead and turned to leave. I had work to do. The hunt was on. The search for the remnants of the 5 families consumed me completely. Every waking hour was devoted to tracking them down, following leads that twisted through the underbelly of the city, like serpents through tall grass. I had thought I had destroyed them, had believed that the violence I had unleashed had scattered their followers to the winds. But I had been wrong. They had regrouped, reorganized, and they were more dangerous than ever. The attack on my estate had been a wake-up call, a brutal reminder that my enemies would never stop coming. They would never forgive, never forget. The only way to end the cycle was to eliminate them completely, to hunt them down and destroy them so thoroughly that nothing remained. I threw myself into the investigation with a fervor that shocked even my most loyal lieutenants. I slept only a few hours a night, surviving on coffee and pure determination. I interviewed informants, reviewed surveillance footage, and followed the money through a labyrinth of shell companies and offshore accounts. Piece by piece, I assembled a picture of the conspiracy that had NEARLY taken everything from me. The remnants were led by Antonio Costello, M.A. Rico's younger brother. I had underestimated him, dismissed him as a minor player in the family's operations. But Antonio was SMA ruder than his sibling, more patient, and infinitely more dangerous. He had learned from M.A. Rico's mistakes, had seen how I had dismantled the conspiracy from within, and he had adapted his strategy accordingly. Antonio had spent months building his network, recruiting disaffected soldiers from the fallen families and cultivating new alliances with rivals I had thought were neutral. He had been patient, methodical, and completely invisible. The attack on my estate had been his first public move, a declaration of war that had caught me completely off guard. But it was also a mistake. In revealing himself, Antonio had given me a target. He had shown his hand, and now I knew what I was dealing with. I tracked him to a Wari house in Brooklyn, a sprawling complex on the waterfront that had been abandoned for years. It was the perfect hideout, isolated and defensible, with multiple escape routes and a clear view of any approaching threat. Antonio had chosen well, but I had chosen better. I had spent weeks planning this operation, assembling a team of my most trusted soldiers and equipping them with the best technology money could buy. We had scouted the Wari house from every angle, mapped out every entrance and exit, and developed a plan that left no room for error. The night of the assault was cold and clear, the kind of night that made you forget the warmth of the sun. I led my team through the shadows, moving with the silence of predators on the hunt. The Wari house loomed ahead of us, its dark windows like empty eyes ring into the void. We breached the perimeter without a sound, neutralizing the guards with practiced efficiency. The element of surprise was on our side, and we used it ruthlessly. Within minutes, we had secured the outer perimeter and were moving Tower RD, the main building. Antonio was waiting for me in the back office, surrounded by his lieutenants. He had known I was coming, had prepared for the confrontation. When I entered the room, he was seated behind a desk, his hands folded in front of him, his expression calm and composed. "Dawn," he said, his voice rang a hint of amusement. "I was wondering when you would show up. You're later than I expected. I wanted to give you time to say your prayers." I raised my weapon, aiming it at his chest. "This ends now, Antonio. Your brother tried to kill me, and he paid the price. Your turn has come. All in good time." He spread his hands, a gesture of surrender that I did not believe for a moment. "I have lost everything, Dawn. My brother, my family, my future. Everything you have taken from me. But I have one thing you don't. I lowered my weapon slightly. My curiosity piqued despite myself. What's that? His smile was cold, vicious, the expression of a man who had nothing left to lose. The location of your family. Your maid and her little girl. Everything went white with rage. I crossed the room in 2 strides, slamming him against the wall with a force that knocked the breath from his lungs. If you have hurt them, if you have laid one finger on either of them, I will make you suffer in ways you cannot imagine. I haven't hurt them, he gasped, struggling to breathe under the pressure of my 4 ARM against his throat. Not yet, but I have people watching their safe house. If I don't check in within the next 30 minutes, they will make sure your precious Lily and Maria never see the light of day again. I released him, stepping back to give myself room to think. The situation was a delicate balance, a knife's edge that I had to navigate with absolute precision. If I killed Antonio, I risked losing Maria and Lily. But if I let him go, I would be giving him the opportunity to strike again. You want something? I said, my voice cold and controlled. You didn't set this up just to gloat. What do you want? Antonio straightened his jacket, regaining his composure with visible effort. I want you to suffer. I want you to know what it feels like to lose everything, the way I have lost everything. His eyes were flat, empty. But I am also a realist. I know I cannot destroy you directly. So I will settle for this, your surrender. Surrender. You think I will simply give up because you have threatened my family. I think you'll do whatever it takes to protect them. He smiled, slow and cruel. That is your weakness, Dawn. You have found something to love, and that love makes you vulnerable. You are no longer the ghost. You are just a man, and men can be broken. I looked at him, this man who had lost everything because of me, and I felt a flicker of something that might have been pity. He had been destroyed by his own greed, his own thirst for revenge. He had sacrificed everything, including his humanity, in pursuit of a cause that could never succeed. Get on your knees, he said, his voice filled with triumph. And I will spar them. I did as he asked, lowering myself to the cold concrete floor. My mind was racing, working through possibilities, searching for a way out of the trap. I had to keep him talking, buy time for my team to find the safe house and neutralize his men. Why did Marco do it? I asked, my voice calm despite my racing heart. Why did he betray me? He had everything. Money, power, respect. Why throw it all away? He was tired of being your dog. Antonio's voice was filled with contempt. You treated him like a servant, a tool to be used. He wanted more, and you would not give it to him. That's not true. I trusted him. I gave him everything I had to give. You trusted him to follow orders. Antonio's eyes were cold, relentless. To clean up your messes, to sacrifice everything while you sat in your ivory tower, pretending to be a king. He was your soldier, not your friend. I heard the truth in his words. I had been a good leader in some ways, but I had failed in others. I had been too caught up in my own world to see the resentment building around me, the slow poison of envy and ambition that had eaten away at the loyalty of my inner circle. Antonio raised his weapon, aiming it at my head. Goodbye, Dawn. The shot never came. My team burst through the door, their weapons blazing. Antonio went down in a hail of bullets, his blood pooling on the floor. His men followed suit, their bodies crumpling as the gunfire echoed through the warri house. I rose to my feet, brushing off my knees, and looked down at Antonio's body. He was dead, his eyes still open, sta ring at nothing. I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, only exhaustion and a desperate need to see my family. The safe house was secure. Maria and Lily were safe. Antonio's men had been dealt with. I went to them immediately, holding them close in a desperate embrace. I had never been so afraid, never been so grateful for the people I love. It's over, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. It's over. You're safe now, both of you. Maria clung to me, her body trembling with relief. Lily wrapped her small arms around my neck, her face buried in my shoulder. I had destroyed my enemies. I had protected my family. And in the process, I had rediscovered what it truly meant to be alive. The aftermath of the Wari House assault brought a silence that felt almost deafening. Antonio was dead, his network shattered, and the remnants of the 5 families had been scattered so thoroughly that they would never pose a threat again.
But the cost of that victory had been high.
I had lost soldiers I had known for years, men who had trusted me with their lives. And I had come closer to losing Maria and Lily than I ever wanted to admit. I spent the days following the attack in a state of heightened vigilance, my senses sharpened to a razor's edge. I moved Maria and Lily to a new safe house, one so secure and remote that even my most trusted lieutenants did not know its location. I surrounded them with guardias I had personally vetted, men whose loyalty had been tested in the crucible of battle. But the fear did not leave me. It lingered in the shadows, a constant companion that whispered warnings in the quiet moments. I had destroyed my enemies, but I knew that new ones would rise to take their place. The nature of my world was endless conflict, an eternal cycle of violence and retribution that would never truly end. Maria noticed the change in me. She was perceptive, attuned to the subtle shifts in my mood that others missed. She found me in my study one evening, STA ring at the wall without seeing it, my mind consumed by dark thoughts. "Dawn, you need to rest." She crossed the room and placed her hand on my shoulder, her touch warm and grounding. "You have been running on empty for weeks. Your body cannot sustain this forever. I cannot rest while there is still a threat." My voice was flat, emotionless. "Every moment I am not working, I am putting you and Lily at risk. You have already destroyed the threat." She knelt beside me, taking my hands in hers. "Antonio is dead. His network is gone. There is no one left to hurt us. You have done everything you could. Enemies will always find a way to rise." I looked at her, letting her see the fear that I had been hiding. "I have made too many enemies over the years, Maria. I have destroyed too many lives. One day, someone will come for revenge. It is inevitable. Then we will face it together." Her voice was firm, unyielding. "That is what family does. We stand together, no matter what comes." I pulled her into my arms, holding her close. She was my anchor, my reason for fighting. Without her, without Lily, I would have descended into the darkness long ago. The weeks passed, and slowly, the tension began to ease. I allowed myself to relax, to trust that the immediate danger had passed. I spent more time with Maria and Lily, trying to make up for the time I had lost. We went to the park, to the zoo, to the places that normal families went. It was strange at first, this glimpse into a world I had never known, but it became more natural with each passing day. Lily was growing up fast, her intelligence and curiosity a constant source of wonder. She asked questions about everything, her mind a sponge that absorbed the world around her. She had become my shadow, following me through the estate and demanding my attention with the relentless persistence of childhood. One evening, as I was reading her a bedtime story, she looked up at me with those enormous eyes and asked the question I had been dreading. "Mr. Dawn, are you going to go away again like you did before?" I set the book aside, giving her my full attention. "No, little one. I am not going anywhere. I am staying right here with you and your mother." "But the bad men came before," she said, her voice small and uncertain. "They might come again. I will protect you." I took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I will always protect you. That is my job now. That is what I am for." She considered this for a moment, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Promise, I promise, Lily. On everything I have, on everything I am, I promise." She nodded, apparently satisfied, and settled back into her pillows. I watched her drift off to sleep, her breathing evening out, her face peaceful and untroubled. She trusted me completely, without reservation. It was a gift I did not deserve, but one I intended to honor. I found Maria waiting for me in the hallway, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You heard that?" I asked. She nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand.
She has been worried about you.
About what happened at the GA Reden. She does not understand it fully, but she knows something bad happened. She is wise beyond her YRS. I pulled Ria into my ARMS, holding her close. She got that from you. I think she got it from you. Ria laughed, a soft, trembling sound. She has your stubbornness, your determination. She will never let anyone tell her what to do. I laughed too, the sound surprising me. It had been so long since I had laughed, since I had allowed myself to feel joy without reservation. In the quiet moments, with the people I loved, I could almost forget the darkness that lurked at the edges of my world. But the darkness was always there, patient and waiting. I had destroyed my enemies, but I had also created new ones. The families of the men I had killed, the allies who had been left powerless, the soldiers who had been displaced by my rise to power. They were all out there, nursing their grievances and waiting for the opportunity to strike. That I had to be ready for them. I had to remain vigilant, always watching, always prepared. But I could not let the fear consume me. I had a family now, a reason to live beyond the endless cycle of violence. I had to find a balance between protecting them and living fully in the present. That night, as I held Ria in my ARMS, I made a decision. I would not let my enemies define me. I would not let fear dictate my life. I would build a future for my family, a legacy of love and protection that would outlast any threat, and I would never forget the lesson that Lily had taught me on that night so long ago. Courage came in the most unexpected places. Love was the greatest weapon of all, and family was worth fighting for. No matter the cost, the hour that followed was the most peaceful I had ever known. The remnants of the 5 families had been completely eradicated, their leaders dead or in prison, their organizations absorbed into my empire or dissolved entirely. The underworld had stabilized under my absolute control, and for the first time in decades, there was no immediate threat on the horizon. I stepped back from the day-to-day operations of my empire, trusting the men I had cultivated to handle the endless stream of challenges that came with maintaining power. Vincent Russo had proven himself worthy of my confidence, and I had promoted him to a position that gave him authority over most of my legitimate and illegitimate businesses. He was loyal, capable, and utterly without ambition beyond serving me well, but I could not completely leave my world behind. The ghost was still a presence, a name that inspired fear and respect in equal measure. I attended meetings when necessary, made decisions when they could not be delegated, and maintained the network of informants and allies that had taken me to build. I was still the most powerful man in the underworld, even if I no longer wielded that power with the same ruthless enthusiasm. My real focus, my true purpose, had shifted. I was no longer building an empire. I was building a family. Ria and I were married in a quiet ceremony at the estate, attended only by our closest friends and allies. It was not the grand affair I had once imagined for myself, but it was perfect in its simplicity. Lily was the flower girl, scattering petals with wild abandon, her joy infectious and undeniable. I watched Ria walk down the aisle, her white dress simple and elegant, her face radiant with happiness. When the vows were exchanged and the ceremony concluded, I pulled them both into my ARs. Ria and Lily, my family, my reason for being. I promise you both, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. I promise to protect you, to cherish you, to give you everything I have. You are my world now, and nothing will ever come between us. Lily tugged at my sleeve, demanding attention. Does this mean you're my daddy now? I laughed, lifting her into my arms. Yes, little one. I am your daddy now, forever and always. She wrapped her arms around my neck, her small body pressed against mine. It was the purest moment of my life, a memory I would cherish until my dying breath. The RS that followed were a revelation. I watched Lily grow from a curious child into a confident young woman, her intelligence and determination a constant source of pride. She inherited her mother's kindness and my stubbornness, a combination that made her unstoppable. She excelled in school, made friends easily, and never let anyone tell her she could not achieve her dreams. I made sure she had every opportunity. I established a trust fund for her education, and when she was old enough, I sent her to the best schools money could buy. I accompanied her to parent-teacher conferences and school plays, sitting in the back row and watching her shine. I taught her everything I knew about the world, hoping to prepare her for the challenges she would inevitably face, and I loved her as if she were my own blood. Because she was, in every way that mattered, Maria was my partner, my confidant, my best friend. We grew old together, our love deepening with each passing year. We traveled the world, visiting places I had only dreamed of seeing. We spent quiet evenings in the garden, watching the sunset and talking about the future. We built a life together that was filled with joy, laughter, and the unshakable certainty that we were exactly where we were meant to be. But the past was never far behind. I could not erase the things I had done, the lives I had taken, the empires I had destroyed. I lived with the weight of those choices every day, a burden I ride with the quiet acceptance of a man who had made peace with his demons. I did what I could to atone. I used my resources to fund scholarships and community projects, building schools and hospitals in the neighborhoods I had once controlled through fear. I established foundations that supported immigrants like Maria, providing them with the opportunities they needed to build better lives. I tried to be a force for good, even as I remained a symbol of everything that was dark and dangerous in the world. And through it all, I never forgot the lesson that Lily had taught me on that night so long ago. Courage came from the most unexpected places. Love was the greatest weapon of all, and family was worth fighting for, no matter the cost. I watched Lily walk across the stage at her college graduation, her smile radiant with the promise of the future. I watched her fall in love, get married, and start a family of her own. I watched her become the woman I had always known she would be, strong and kind and utterly fearless. And I knew that I had found redemption, not through power or wealth or revenge, but through love, through loyalty, through the unbreakable bonds of family. The ghost had died a long time ago, in the basement of my estate on that fateful birthday night. The man who had risen from the ashes was someone different entirely. Someone who had rened that true power came not from fear, but from love. Not from control, but from connection. Not from the lives he had taken, but from the lives he had saved. I held Maria's hand as we watched the sun set over the garden, the colors painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Lily was coming for dinner, bringing her husband and children with her. The house would be filled with laughter and chaos, the sounds of a family that had been forged in fire and forged in love. I had everything I had ever wanted. And I had rened it, not through blood and violence, but through the simple, extraordinary act of opening my heart to the people who mattered most. In the end, my greatest legacy was not the empire I had built. It was the family I had found along the way. The ghost was gone. Long live the man he had become. I sit in the garden now, an old man with more memories than yet left to live. The sun is setting over the estate, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, just as it did on that night so long ago when a little girl tugged at my trousers and changed everything. The flowers in bloom, the same ones Lily and I planted together when she was tall enough to hold the watering can. They have grown wild and beautiful, a testament to the passage of time and the endurance of love. Maria is beside me, her hand in mine, her silver hair catching the light. We have grown old together, weathered every storm that life has thrown at us. Her fingers reled with age, but they still fit perfectly in my palm. She is still the woman I fell in love with, the quiet immigrant who taught me that loyalty was not bought, but rened. She saved me in ways she will never fully understand. The house behind us is filled with noise, the laughter of grandchildren, and the chaos of family gatherings. Lily is inside, her voice ring through the open windows as she chases her youngest around the kitchen. She is a mother now, a woman of strength and grace, and she rise the same fire in her eyes that she had as a child. Her children know nothing of the darkness that once consumed this house. They know only love, only safety, only the warmth of a family that was forged in blood and redemption. I think about the boy I was, the man who clawed his way out of the gutter with nothing but rage and determination. I think about the father I lost, the empire I built, the enemies I destroyed. I think about the paths I walked, the choices I made, the lives I took. There is no absolution for the things I have done, only the quiet acceptance that I did what I had to do to survive. But I also think about the night that changed everything. A child's whisper in a crowded room. A warning that came from nowhere and saved everyone. A small hand tugging at my trousers, pulling me back from the brink of annihilation. Without Lily, I would have died in that basement, and everyone I love would have perished with me. She gave me a second chance, and I used it to build something I never imagined possible. I squeeze Maria's hand, and she turns to me with a smile that still makes my heart skip. What are you thinking about? The beginning, I say, my voice rough with age and emotion. And the end. And everything in between. She leans her head against my shoulder, and we watch the sun sink below the horizon. The stars are re-emerging, scattered across the darkening sky like diamonds on velvet. It is a beautiful night, the kind that makes you forget the ugliness of the world. The ghost is a memory now, a legend that will fade with time. But the man I became, the father and husband and grandfather, will live on in the hearts of the people I love. That is the only legacy that matters. I close my eyes and listen to the sounds of my family, and I know that I have found peace. Not the peace of death, but the peace of a life lived fully, a life redeemed by love. It was a long road, filled with darkness and danger, but it led me here. To this Reden. To this woman. To this family. And as the last light fades from the sky, I whisper a prayer of thanks to the little girl who saved me, and to the love that made me whole.